Okay, let's dive into this because chances are you know exactly what it feels like when life's chaos just hits you from every single angle. It's a totally universal, exhausting reality, isn't it? That feeling where everything seems to be spiraling completely out of control and you are literally just trying to keep your head above water. Well, in this explainer today, we're breaking down the anatomy of a breakthrough. Specifically, we're going to look at how to make a profound, life-altering shift from deep, paralyzing despair into powerful, anchoring worship. So the ultimate question we've got to ask today is, how do you actually navigate uncontrollable chaos? When you're completely overwhelmed, what is your actual day-to-day strategy? To figure this out, we're going to dive into what is basically a masterclass in emotional and spiritual survival. Our primary case study today is someone who experienced extreme, dizzying highs and devastating rock-bottom lows. We're talking about King David.
Now, David's reality was, well, it was really complex. His hands were rarely clean, his life was rarely peaceful, and yet his faith, it was absolutely unshakable. It's so important for us to understand right up front that David wasn't some bulletproof superhero who just magically floated through life without issues. Not at all. He faced massive, catastrophic failures and terrifying events that were completely out of his hands. But his secret? It was this deliberate, incredibly honest shift from anxiety to worship. Let's look at exactly how he pulled this off across 3 very specific crises.
Let's move to and see how this builds with our first major crisis, Psalm 3, relinquishing control. This represents the agonizing years David spent literally running for his life, hiding from a fiercely jealous King Saul. And here's the kicker. David hadn't even done anything wrong here. He had served Saul faithfully. Yet despite that, he found himself being hunted down, betrayed by his friends, and living out of damp caves as a homeless outcast. I mean, just imagine that terrifying scenario for a second. Being trapped in a life-threatening situation that is entirely out of your control, no matter how good your intentions actually were.
And this brilliantly illustrates the shift David made. On one side, we've got the despair. He is hunted, and he is legitimately afraid. He didn't pretend he wasn't absolutely terrified. But look at his response on the right, the worship. He poured out all of his raw, unfiltered anxiety to God. And then he did something amazing. He surrendered the outcome. Instead of seizing power or taking revenge on Saul when he actually had the perfect chance to do it, he waited on God's timing. Which brings us to Psalm 3, verse 4. I cried aloud to the Lord, and he answered me from his holy hill. I really want to apply this directly to you watching this right now. When danger, or honestly just your everyday circumstances, feel vastly larger than you, your job isn't to force a solution. Your job is to find your safety in God right smack in the middle of whatever cave you happen to be sitting in today.
This takes us right into our second crisis, covered in Psalm 51, finding mercy. But what happens when the chaos is actually your own fault? This deals with the heavy, crushing weight of personal failure. We're talking about the infamous story with Bathsheba and Uriah. This wasn't something happening to David. This was entirely David's fault. He sinned grievously, and it brought immense guilt, massive public consequences, and severe inner brokenness. The weight of this must have been absolutely suffocating.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the incredible contrast in his reaction. On one side, we have crushing guilt and shame. Let's be real, most of us, when we mess up this badly, we want to hide. We make excuses, we blame our environment, right? But instead, David shifted to worship. He ran straight to God for total restoration. He didn't hide from the judge, he threw himself entirely on the Father's mercy. He writes in Psalm 51:10, Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. This is a huge takeaway for you. Listen, God's grace is significantly deeper than your deepest failure. If you're in a mess of your own making right now, please do not let shame convince you that you're disqualified. Repent honestly, ask for forgiveness, and let Him renew your heart instead of hiding away in the dark.
Let's look at a third and final crisis scenario. Psalm 34, total exhaustion. This one is all about what happens when you hit absolute, complete despair, and you have literally nothing left in the tank. The crisis here took place at a settlement called Ziklag. The town was completely burned to the ground by an enemy army. David's family and the families of all his loyal men were captured. And to make it infinitely worse, his own heartbroken men were so angry that they were actually threatening to stone him. David hit rock bottom. The text says he wept until he had absolutely no physical or emotional strength left to weep. He was utterly drained. In this pivotal moment of total loss, when he was completely alone and just totally drained, notice the massive mental shift he makes. The text tells us David found strength in the Lord. Before he rushed out to the battlefield to try and fix the problem, before he even got his family back, he paused. He intentionally stopped to strengthen his mind and his soul in who God was.
He reflects on this perfectly in Psalm 34:18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Let me tell you directly, when you are totally drained of strength, you absolutely do not have to manufacture it on your own. You can actually tap into God's infinite reserve simply by looking up and remembering who is standing right there on your side.
So, let's bring this all together. From anxiety to worship, actionable takeaways. So, the crucial point is, how do we shift focus from this ancient history to your actual daily life? Well, here is your practical daily process to turn panic into praise. Number 1, pour out your honest pain. Number 2, repent openly. And number 3, actively turn those anxious thoughts into songs and prayers. It's a daily process. Just to briefly summarize this toolkit for you, be completely honest before God. Seriously, don't hide the ugly stuff from Him. Turn that pain directly into prayer and praise. Repent when you need to, and readily receive His mercy. Wait patiently on God's timing instead of trying to force your own shortcuts. And finally, anchor yourself in God's character, not your chaotic, ever-changing circumstances. David's true secret was simply keeping the lines of communication with God wide open, no matter what was hitting the fan. I want to leave you with a closing promise from Isaiah 26, verse 3. It says, "You keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you." You guys, this isn't just a nice, inspiring quote. It's a deeply practical tool. When that random Tuesday morning anxiety suddenly hits you, you can apply this right then and there by actively fixing your thoughts on God instead of the swirling, chaotic circumstances around you. Which brings us to a final question that I want you to really truly think about. Will you bring your broken pieces to Him today? You see, the most beautiful part of this entire explainer is the realization that you absolutely do not need to have it all perfectly together to talk to God. You don't need clean hands, and you definitely don't need a peaceful life to start. You just need to bring Him the pieces. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this today. I really hope it helps you find your breakthrough and helps turn your chaos into a lasting, beautiful worship.